California looked peaceful. Everything seemed normal. But no one knew that a mysterious killer was already hunting in the shadows. He wasn't just murdering innocent people. He was sending letters to the police after every attack. Instead of hiding, he wanted the whole world to know he existed. He even gave himself a name, Zodiac, a name that would soon become one of the most terrifying in criminal history. It all began in 1968. On a quiet December night, a young couple sat inside their car on a lonely road. Without warning, a mysterious man stepped out of the darkness. He was carrying a gun. Before they could react, gunshots shattered the silence. When the police arrived, the scene was horrifying, but they had no idea. This wasn't just another murder. It was the beginning of a nightmare that would terrorize America for years. As detectives searched for clues, something even stranger happened. Newspapers received handwritten letters from the killer himself. In those letters, he confessed to the murders. But that wasn't all. He included a secret coded message and demanded that newspapers publish it. If they refused, he threatened to kill again. The police were stunned. Who was this man? How did he disappear without leaving a trace? And why did he seem to enjoy playing games with investigators? No one had the answers. But the worst was yet to come, because only days later, the Zodiac Killer struck again. And this time, he left behind a clue that would change the investigation forever. To be continued. After the first murders, police believed they were dealing with an ordinary criminal, but they were wrong. Just a few months later, another young couple was sitting inside their car on a quiet, isolated road. Suddenly, a vehicle pulled up beside them. For a brief moment, it looked as if someone needed directions. But then, the same mysterious man stepped out of the car. He was holding a gun. Without saying a word, he opened fire. Both victims were seriously wounded. But against all odds, the young man survived. For the first time, someone had seen the killer and lived to tell the story. He told investigators, the attacker remained calm throughout the assault. His voice showed no fear. He behaved as if killing people was completely normal to him. While detectives were still collecting evidence, another letter arrived at a newspaper office. This time, the killer not only admitted responsibility for the attack, he also mocked the police once again. In the letter, he wrote, "This is the Zodiac speaking." It was the first time he publicly introduced himself to the world as Zodiac. Along with the letter, he sent another encrypted cipher. He claimed that it contained his true identity. Fear spread across America. Everyone was asking the same question. Would the Zodiac Killer strike again? And if he did, who? Part 3. Trying to decode the Zodiac's letters and mysterious ciphers. But the Zodiac was always one step ahead. September 27th, 1969. A young couple was relaxing near the shore of a quiet lake. Without warning, a strange man appeared before them. This time, he wasn't carrying only a weapon. He was wearing a bizarre black executioner's hood. On the front of the hood was a white circle with a crossed symbol. He slowly approached the couple and claimed he was an escaped prisoner. He said all he wanted was their car, but it was all a lie. Moments later, he tied both of them up. Then, instead of using a gun, he pulled out a large knife. He repeatedly stabbed the couple before leaving them bleeding on the ground. As he walked away, he used a black marker to write a chilling message on their car door. He listed the dates of his previous attacks and signed it with one word: Zodiac. It was clear now He wasn't just committing murders. He was turning each crime into part of his terrifying identity. Police realized they were hunting a killer who was becoming more dangerous with every attack. Part 4. The phone call that shocked the police. After the brutal attack at the lake, police hoped the killer had finally made a mistake. But once again, the Zodiac was one step ahead. A short time after the attack, a phone rang at a nearby police station. On the other end was a calm, emotionless voice. The caller said, "I want to report a murder and a double stabbing." He then gave the exact location of the attack. Before hanging up, he quietly added, "I did it." The line went dead. Police immediately tried to trace the call, but they were too late. As the investigation continued, a surprising fact emerged. The young man who had been attacked had survived. He provided investigators with important details about the killer's hood, his clothing, and his calm behavior. For the first time, police had a credible description of the Zodiac. But even with these new clues, they still couldn't identify him. Meanwhile, more letters from the Zodiac arrived at newspaper offices. In every letter, he mocked the police and confidently claimed that they would never catch him. Fear spread across America. People became afraid to go out at night, and police were still hunting a killer whose true face remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Just 2 weeks later, the Zodiac struck again, but this time, he changed his method. October 11th, 1969. It was a busy night in San Francisco. A taxi driver was taking what seemed to be his final passenger of the evening. When the cab stopped in a quiet residential neighborhood, the passenger suddenly pulled out a handgun. Seconds later, a single gunshot echoed through the street. The driver died at the scene. The killer showed no sign of panic. He calmly stepped out of the cab, cut a piece from the victim's blood-stained shirt, and disappeared into the darkness. Several children, watching from a nearby window, witnessed the attack. They immediately called the police. Within minutes, officers flooded the area. But then, a critical mistake was made. A police radio broadcast described the suspect incorrectly. Because of that error, one officer unknowingly walked right past the real Zodiac Killer, believing he was just another pedestrian. The officer let him go. Days later, another letter arrived at a newspaper office. Inside the envelope was a piece of the taxi driver's blood-stained shirt. It was undeniable proof that the letter had come from the Zodiac himself. Now the entire country was asking one question: would this killer ever be caught? After the murder of the taxi driver, the Zodiac did not disappear. Instead, he began his most disturbing game. He continued sending letters to newspapers across California. Every letter contained threats, mocking messages, and mysterious encrypted ciphers. One of them became known as the 340 cipher. The Zodiac claimed that solving it would reveal the truth about him. Across America, cryptographers, mathematicians, and ordinary citizens all tried to crack the code. Months passed, then years, yet no one could solve it. Meanwhile, the Zodiac kept claiming in his letters that he had killed far more victims than the police knew about, but he rarely provided proof for those claims. As a result, the true number of his victims remains a mystery to this day. On one side, police were desperately searching for his identity. On the other, the world was trying to decode his messages. But once again, the Zodiac stayed one step ahead of everyone. The years passed, but the Zodiac seemed to vanish without a trace. Police interviewed Thousands of people, hundreds of suspects, were investigated. With every new clue, it seemed they were finally getting closer. But every lead eventually went cold. During the investigation, one name kept appearing: Arthur Lee Allen. To many investigators, he became the strongest suspect. Some of his habits and certain pieces of evidence appeared to match the Zodiac Killer. Police searched his home. They questioned him repeatedly. They even compared his handwriting to the Zodiac's letters. But none of the evidence was strong enough to prove he was the killer in court. DNA testing, fingerprints, and other forensic evidence failed to provide a definitive answer. Every promising lead only created more questions. Had the police found the right man, or was the real Zodiac Killer still hiding in plain sight? To be continued. Years passed, yet the Zodiac's identity remained a mystery. Then, modern forensic technology brought new hope. Investigators examined the Zodiac's letters, envelopes, and postage stamps, searching for usable DNA. Many believed the decades-old mystery was finally about to be solved. But the results were disappointing. The DNA samples were incomplete, and none of them could be conclusively matched to any suspect. Meanwhile, new theories continued to emerge. Some believed the killer had died years earlier. Others claimed he had lived a normal life, hidden in plain sight. Every new theory raised fresh hope, but none of the evidence could prove the truth. Police still had more questions than answers. Yet, one final mystery was about to capture the world's attention, a secret that remained unsolved for more than 50 years, to be continued. More than 50 years had passed, yet the world was still trying to solve one of the Zodiac Killer's most famous ciphers. It was known as the 340 cipher. Thousands of experts had attempted to crack it, but every one of them failed. Then, in 2020, a team of 3 amateur codebreakers finally solved the cipher. The news spread around the world. Within hours, many believed the killer's real identity was finally about to be revealed, but the truth was very different. The decoded message contained no real name. Instead, the Zodiac once again mocked the police and the public. He claimed that killing gave him pleasure and insisted that he would never reveal his identity. The biggest surprise was his real name was nowhere in the message. After more than 50 years, the world had solved the code, but not the mystery. Only one question remained. Who was the Zodiac Killer? To be continued. Today, more than half a century has passed. Yet, the true identity of the Zodiac Killer remains unknown. Investigators reviewed thousands of pages of evidence. They examined hundreds of suspects. They used modern DNA technology and reopened the case more than once. But as to this day, no one has ever been proven in court to be the Zodiac Killer. Some experts believe the killer died many years ago. Others believe he may have lived an ordinary life, hidden among everyone else. Officially, the Zodiac Killer is linked to at least 5 confirmed murders and 2 surviving victims. However, many believe his true number of victims may never be known. What is the truth? Perhaps the answer will remain a mystery forever. And that is why the Zodiac Killer is still remembered as one of the world's most infamous and unsolved criminal cases. The killer may never be found, but his mystery still lives on The end. Some mysteries are never solved, but the next one is even darker. Watch next.